when we're recording this, it's the 5th of February, and the headlines just came in, of course, of the first group of undocumented Indian immigrants being flown back. Of course, India is not the first country that the U.S. administration is doing this to, but it's been one of the big moments, right? And very defining moment. And U.S. President Trump has been talking about why this needs to happen. Can you take us through a little bit of how you see this play out?
So I think for one, I just say, this is not a new issue in US-India relation. It's a long-running issue, but a few things have changed. Um, there have been in the previous Trump administration, there were a few thousand, if I remember correctly, um, uh, folks. People use different terms. People use everything from illegal alien to undocumented migrant to unauthorized migrant. And you saw Secretary Rubio in the readout of the Rubio Jayashankar meeting, the State Department referred to it as irregular migration. So pick your term. But undocumented or unauthorized migrants, there were several thousand, but not reaching that level from India, not reaching that level. But you did see a number of people overstaying visas. That used to be where you saw these unauthorized migrants in the US from India. And then you started seeing, though, over the last few years, so one thing that changed is just the scale. You started seeing, I mean, your listeners would know there was a movie about this, about the donkey route, the donkey route. Not, and the movie was about, migrants going to the UK, but there are numbers who started coming to the US as well, both through the southern borders, but interestingly, a significant number through the northern border. That is from Canada and Mexico from the south, and then Canada from the north. That suddenly, so your scale has gone up, and the nature of these undocumented migrants. I think the second thing that changed is just the conversation about migration here. It is a political issue. President Trump arguably came to power because people there were a significant number of people who thought that the US had become too permissive in terms of incorporating migrants. And so you saw him use that, the famous kind of Trump border wall, etc. And what you've seen now is this, that even President Biden, knowing that this was a political issue, so even India was accepting deported Indians even during the Biden administration. But what you're going to see is just the scale and the priority that this is being given. This is what President Trump said he was going to do during the elections. The other thing that you've seen, I think, change is just the way this is being done, right? If you look at, you've used to work at a news channel, you see this, they are making sure these are being documented by TV shows. So this is being made almost into a TV show. There are cameras following these deportation flights. They're doing them very speedily. They are pressing governments who are not accepting it. And then, you see, as you saw kind of in these migrants that were deported back to India, that these are being done in military aircraft. So, it's kind of shock and awe in that sense, in a very different
It
sense.
really does send that message across, doesn't it? You're right. And they never made the headlines in this way before. So it is like a well produced spectacle, designed to also, I suppose, deter
That's
in
right.
many ways.
Exactly. It is supposed to say this is what, the end result of your decision to use these donkey routes isn't citizenship in America. It is going to be a flight back to your homeland, possibly handcuffed, and probably in a military flight. There are some, for example, I don't know that there are any Indians included, but you never know because data is not, we don't have the data. But even migrants are being sent to Guantanamo Bay. If you remember that, that was where kind of,
Yeah.
those accused of terrorism were being kept. I think the one, just on the final point I'll make is on kind of the impact. I think, you saw the Indian government, and this was predictable. I'll say that, even I, sitting on the outside, not privy to kind of government discussions, had said back in October, even before the election, that if Trump wins, this would be one of his asks. What you've seen is the Indian government, that probably, and reports indicate that they did, mapped out after he won what might his demands be and what can India do in some ways. So I think what you saw is these reports that India has agreed preemptively, so not waiting for Trump to tweet about it or threaten repercussions, is say, it seems that this might be something External Affairs Jayashankar might have mentioned were in his trip, which is we will take back, these 18,500 folks who've been identified, and we will accept these deportees coming back. And they must have negotiated. I would not be surprised, having seen that the arrival was in Amritsar, that part of what they probably negotiated is where these flights would land, etc. I wasn't surprised that India accepted these deportation flights. I was a little bit surprised that India accepted that this would be on military aircraft.